Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of the Dark Art Society podcast. I'm your host, Chet, and this week we have Emma Black. She's a great painter and a very nice person. We had a great talk, and so I'm looking forward to sharing that with you shortly. Oh man, I'm so out of it. So I had my opening at Copro Gallery, and Emma had her opening at the same night at the same gallery, and so did Stephanie Inagaki and Dos Diablos. So it was 4 solo shows opening at the same time. So it was really great to be able to show with other really great artists. It was really a great show. Everybody brought their A game, as they say, and I was really happy to be part of that. Really, one of the best shows I've seen in a long time. Really, it was the work was so, everyone had very solid work, and no filler. It was all just solid, great work. So that was great. I had a really good turnout. Sold a good amount. It was a success. It was great. Then I couldn't do a podcast after that. I apologize. I just was too tired the week after. Then I had to go and do the Pussifer store opening the next weekend and give a presentation of my artwork. And that was great. Jen and Maynard are awesome, great hosts, and what they have going on in Cottonwood, Arizona, and Jerome is really incredible. I'm so impressed with everything they're doing. The store was amazing, and they treated us really well, and that was a big success too. It was sold stuff, had big lines. The people seemed to like the presentation, so that went well. Thank you, Josh Breckenridge. My friend Josh came out to help me, so we had a really great time. Really, really fun, great trip. Then I got back, and I was too tired again. I got back that Sunday, and I just couldn't do another podcast. So I apologize for the wait. I just couldn't do it. But I'm happy to start it back up again this week with Emma, and it's a great episode. So again, I'm excited to share it. So that's what's going on with me. I should be back on the regular pod schedule. And yeah, if you want to support the podcast, you can go to patreon.com/darkartsociety. And for as little as $1, you can support the podcast, $1 a month. And if you join at the $3 and above level, I think it's the $3 and above. I'm so tired. You get a 20% discount. Maybe it's the $5 and above. $3 and above, you get in the Discord. I'm trying to get the Dark Art Society Discord more happening too, more active. Anyway, I think it's a $5 level. You get a free coupon code for 20% off. Skull Shop, SkullShoppe.com. They make the most amazing skulls. I use them for all my paintings for reference. I've got my I voted sign because I voted. I hope you vote. I hope you voted too. Yeah, and you also get your name read on the air. And so I think we got a couple new ones. Dan Mile. I'm not sure if I read this last couple weeks ago. Dan Mile, thank you. Wurzel, thank you. Castillo Art, thank you very much for supporting. We couldn't do it without you. I guess that's everything. I can't think of anything else. Yeah, let's just get on with it. It's a great interview. Here we go. Emma Black. Hope you like it. Hi, Emma.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm good. I'm just resting, as I'm sure you are, kind of recuperating from the show we did together. Um, uh,
Yeah. It's always very, very intense before the shows, as you know.
yeah, yeah. For people who don't know, I had my solo show. Emma had a solo show. Stephanie Inagaki had a solo show, and Dos Diablos all on the same night at Copro Gallery. And so I'm sure I'm still kind of you had jet lag and everything else on top of all that stuff, right?
Oh, well, I mean, you would think so, but I'm somehow able to survive on quite little sleep.
Oh, really?
So
Lucky.
actually, before I flew out, I didn't manage to get any sleep before my flight. And then I had to drive sort of 2.5 hours to the airport. And then there was an accident on one of the roads. So I got delayed an hour and I was panicking. I might have missed my flight. And then I thought, okay, well, at least I'll sleep on the plane and hopefully it'll fly by. And then, of course, I didn't get any sleep. And then I got to LAX and it took me 2 hours to get through the customs
uh,
and then an hour to get to the hotel. So I think I figured out that by the time I got to sleep that night, I'd been awake for a full 2 days.
oh my
But
God.
then it never seemed to catch up. There was so much stuff to do.
Yeah.
I think I just kind of powered through it.
Yeah. Yeah. I had same thing getting ready for just finishing my paintings for the show.
Mm.
I don't know if it was 2 days, but it was like a 30 something hour day. I think it was just crazy, terrible,
Oh my God.
painful. So, and I'm older now, so it's like I just can't do it like I used to. I used to be able to do that, pull these all nighters, no problem, and kind of
No, I feel you there. There was definitely the last few weeks where I think I sort of did from like 8 in the morning through till midnight and just was surviving on like snacks and things. So I didn't really have to cook too many meals.
right.
And but you do what you have to.
Yeah, exactly. People think it's all glamorous when you have a solo show, but it's such hard work, and But
Yeah, I tell everyone that just like I'm an artist hermit and people don't believe me, but like I genuinely am.
yeah, yeah, your stuff was so amazing. It was so cool to see it in person. It's just such great, uh, amazing painting skills and just beautiful paintings, and I was super impressed.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. I
Yeah.
really loved your stuff as well. It was so nice being able to see in person.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, seeing it in person, I always tell people it's like it's really makes a difference with
Mm.
physical artwork. There's just
Even
things.
just in terms of the scale, isn't
Yeah,
it?
right.
I mean, you never get a sense of that when you just look at something on
Yeah,
a phone or on a computer.
definitely.
Um, it's completely different seeing it in person.
Hmm. And brushwork and all that stuff. One thing I really like about your work is that you are not afraid of just painting it tight. Painting it tight. Don't worry about being loose. I don't know. I've talked about this so many times that I'm naturally like a tight painter, and the I don't know, the traditional, these guys like Jeremy Lipking. I don't know if you know him,
Mhm.
or these guys that are like more academic painters, really good painters. They're they're all about economy of brushstroke and painting loose, but still having it look right from a distance. And I love and appreciate that stuff, but it's just not my natural tendency. So I always appreciate artists that are like, fuck that. This is how I paint. It's tight, and I love it. It looks good. It's like it doesn't have to be loose or tight. It's not like there's a good way or a bad way. It's like it's all whatever your taste is. And I was gonna
Yeah.
say, I imagine has to do with your tattooing.
Well, the painting I've been doing for like a lot longer than the tattooing.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, but I think it's just the detail. Like I just love detail in work.
Hmm.
To the point where I think I hate big open spaces. Like I'll try and cover every space. Like if I have a painting that has something that's just very smooth in it, it kind of makes me a bit uneasy.
Right.
So I love to texture things and have those fine details. Like I notice with your work a lot, you have like a lot of details in texture and stuff, don't you?
Oh yeah,
As well.
I'm a detail freak for sure.
Yeah.
And I was even like that when I was in the film industry and I was a sculptor. Um, Most people don't like sculpting pores on
Mm.
skin, because we had to make everything look super realistic. And I was one of the few people that just loved sculpting pores one at a time. And it was just like, I don't know, there's something about um, seeing a painting or a sculpture that when you get to that point where you start adding those details and it just looks so good. You know what I mean? And those
Yeah.
finishing touches, and I just like get in the zone and detail the hell out of it.
Oh, definitely. One of my favorite bits is at the end of the painting where I go back and we'll like glaze it and I'll just add more shadows and add more highlights and going
Right.
in with the little white highlights and everything.
Yeah.
It's satisfying.
It can be like, this is okay, it's okay, it's okay, and then you get to that very last thing, and boom, it just kind of happens. It's
Yeah.
the most fun part of painting. That to me, that and starting a painting too. It's more like
Mm.
the middle parts are the difficult
It can
part.
definitely be a bit of a slog sometimes, can't it?
Yeah.
You sort of like you're excited with the new one and then it's always exciting in the end when you see it come together, I think.
Right. Yeah.
But then the middle bit can start to get like, especially when it's a big piece and you've been doing it for like quite a while.
Yeah.
It can get a little bit boring, can't it?
Yeah. I think Wayne White. It's Wayne White, right? He's an artist. There's
Hmm.
a documentary about him. It's really good if you haven't seen it, called Beauty is Embarrassing. And it's funny. His artwork is like he's kind of the guy that started the taking thrift store paintings and like painting words in them that like kind of
Nice.
like really funny phrases and stuff. But there's a scene where he's working on a painting and he said, "This is the ditch digging part." Everyone thinks it's all fun and everything, but there's this like whole section of painting where it's just grind, grind, grind.
Oh,
Dig
totally.
in the
And all the
ditch.
sort of like the kind of like the hidden labor to the shows as well, like the kind of the making the boards or the gessoing and
Mm-hmm.
the just drilling them and stringing things and
Right.
you can lose like days just in that sort of stuff as well and
Yeah. Yeah.
it's so boring.
That's what happened
All
with
of that boring prep work.
that was one of the times where I think I did my longest one day, the 28, 30, whatever hour day was when I
Mm.
was like, okay, I can put all these frame corners, like it's just gluing frame corners on. But it's like 50 something frame corners and I had to like paint them all and then I had to glue them on. And it seems like, I could do this in an 8 hour day. And it ended up taking all day and all night and into the morning. It was such a
Yeah.
nightmare. I was so sore after that.
Oh, that does not surprise me. I mean, I think like every single thing, like it always just takes longer than you imagine, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like it's very rare that you'll sort of like finish a piece or like a certain thing like that, and then you think, wow, that's actually taken me a lot less
I
time. Like
know.
that never happens.
Never. It never happens. So that's I didn't realize have been painting longer than you've been tattooing. I'd like to hear your artist origin story.
Yeah, so I always like loved art ever since I was little.
Were your parents cool with it?
Yeah, they were really supportive
Oh,
as well, which
excellent.
was nice. Like when I was young, they would like take me to art stores and buy me materials and things.
Oh, cool.
And I mainly, when I was younger, just did like watercolors, drawing, things like that. So I did it at school, and all my teachers said that recommended I went into doing illustration because I did drawing so much at the time.
Hmm.
So I went to university to do a degree in illustration and visual communication
Cool.
with the idea of being a freelance illustrator when I finished.
Mm-hmm.
So I went to the University of Westminster for that, did 3 years doing it. So that was down in like London, and I think I did the very like typical thing where I would live more out in the countryside, and I thought, yeah, I'll move to London. It'll be so fun. It'll be so cool. I'll go and study art, and it was fun. But like I realized I kind of hated being in the city as well, and I started to kind of miss the countryside a bit. So when I finished university, I moved out of London
Mm-hmm.
Which was quite a good move at the time because the prices just to live in London were so expensive. I would have had to get like a sort of secondary job at that point. But moving out where it was a little bit cheaper, like I love the sort of peace and quiet, but also it meant that I could just do my art more full time with no pressure as such,
Right.
which was like good. So I could like really like concentrate on it. And I did freelance illustration for a few years and then kind of decided that like I hated doing it.
What kind of stuff were you doing?
It was mainly I did stuff sort of like band type stuff, some like magazine stuff. Um
Was it boring?
this
Was it boring
Yeah,
stuff that you weren't interested in, kind of?
it was more sort of like commercial work, and I think
Okay.
it was just having like a brief, and then I would always, you turn in the work and then you might have someone say, actually, can you change this, and I think it would work better like this, and I'd be thinking like, I don't think it will, but I had to kind of
That's the story of my makeup effects life.
yeah, there's always someone that knows better, and then they've shown it to their mum, and their mum thinks this would work better, and so you have to change this, and then someone else has an opinion, and
that's
it wasn't for me, and I kind of thought to myself like I just want to be doing my own work
mm-hmm.
instead and showing that. And when I was a teenager, I started buying like juxtapose and high fructose and got more into the sort of artwork that they showed.
Mm-hmm.
And I sort of like when I was a teenager as well, became a fan of a lot of the kind of like pop surrealism, new contemporary, like dark art
Mm-hmm.
artists. And so I kind of thought to myself, like, I don't know why I really went down a commercial route. I think it was just because all my teachers tried to push me to it because they thought it would be easier to get a job in that kind of commercial field rather than doing more fine art and just being an artist.
It's a practical consideration. I mean, it's reasonable, practical consideration, I think.
Yeah. And, and like, I've got friends that, have like really like good careers and stuff, but it wasn't really for me.
Right.
So I went and did my master's for a year. So I went to the like Cambridge School of Art to go do that for just a year. And I really like loved doing that because again, that was just focused on your own work and your own practice. And that's when I started to oil paint more. So that was, I think I finished that in maybe 2015-ish. I graduated that. And then I started, I thought to myself, like, okay, I need to get together like a good sort of like portfolio of paintings that I could then send off to like different galleries that I'd be interested in or like enter into competitions and things like this. And so I started working on that. I thought I'd set myself like a year to try and do like a really nice, like a nice sort of like little mini series or something to show what I could do. And I submitted it to a load of things and actually got like, some feedback and got accepted into some stuff. And it kind of just went from there. So I found like once I started showing with a few different like smaller galleries and entering some competitions, and then other galleries seemed to find me and then start to invite me to like a few more group shows, and it just kind of picked up. But I think like the more you do, then the more people find your work. And so yeah.
So how there's a lot of questions I want to ask you. I want to ask where tattooing came in, and also how big was social media in your, I don't know, getting exposure and building your audience and selling work? Was it like, were you more of a gallery person or selling yourself on social media, or were they kind of both happening?
It was mainly galleries. So
cool.
I do prints, which I sell myself. But the majority of the paintings I do, they nearly all go to galleries. Like I think for probably like the last 5 years, I don't think I've done like any paintings that haven't gone off to a gallery really.
That's cool.
Apart from like maybe just a couple of little small ones. But I think that's because I like to sort of like take on as much work as I can in a way, like keep myself quite busy.
Mm-hmm.
And then also, I feel like for the size of them, my paintings take quite a while as well. So I usually try and space shows out, but I usually try and keep like my schedule like as full as possible. So it doesn't really allow as much time for just doing other paintings and trying to like sell them myself or like commission work and things. But yeah, I do the prints, and often I'll try and do like, you know, special like hand embellished prints or
Mm-hmm.
things like this that are kind of like a little bit different that people can buy as well. You know, for people that maybe can't afford original but like
Right.
my work.
Yeah, yeah. So
But yeah, sorry.
no, I was just gonna ask, where does the tattooing come in? Because you also tattoo, right?
Yeah, I've actually only been doing it 18 months.
Oh, okay. So
So
it's pretty new.
yeah. So I do that in Peterborough, which is the sort of like the closest city to where I live.
You're out in the country?
Oh yeah.
Ah, it's so
I live
cool.
sort of like on the outskirts of like a little sort of small town out in the country.
Ah, sounds amazing. I wish I lived out in the country.
It's nice and peaceful.
Yeah.
But yeah, the Peterborough, which is closest to me, is like half an hour's drive away, so
Okay.
it's not too far. And then, but yeah, it's quite nice here. And then also like if I do want to go to London, it's like an hour's train from Peterborough,
Mm,
so everything's like fairly close by. But
that's
I
cool.
get like a bit of peace and quiet to sit and paint with.
Yeah.
But yeah, so the tattoos, I started going and getting tattooed. Like I didn't actually get any tattoos till I was 31.
Mm,
Um, and then I started going. So Lee Tilbrook has done all my tattoos, and he's the person who also taught me how to tattoo,
mm.
and is the owner of the shop where I work now.
What's his name?
So Lee Tilbrook,
Lee Tolbrook. Okay.
yeah.
I'll have to
So
look him
he
up.
does. He specializes in a lot of the like kind of like fine line tattoos, like
Mm,
um, all the stuff I have.
cool.
So
Yeah, it's great.
I
Great work.
I kind of I'd always loved tattooing and wanted to do it when I was younger as well.
Mm,
Like a lot of the artwork that I used to draw when I was a teenager was quite inspired by like a lot of tattoo art, like traditional tattoo art as
mm.
well. And my parents weren't really like the biggest fan of tattoos. And when I was younger, I wasn't allowed to get tattoos.
Right.
And then as I got older, like I knew it would sort of, you know, maybe cause a few arguments and things. So I just put it off for a while. And then also I thought I'll wait until I find someone's work that I really liked. So when I came across Lee's work, that's when I started booking in and getting tattoos from him.
Mm,
And so yeah, the first few that I got done were all sort of like my hips and like my sternum and places I could hide, because I thought I'll just put off the arguments for like a little bit longer, you know. um, and so yeah, when one time when I was getting tattooed, he asked me if I'd ever just thought about tattooing, and I said, well, you know, I did want to when I was younger, and I just figured I'm probably just too old to start learning now. And he was like, I don't think you are. And I was like, well, do you want to teach me? And he was like, yeah, I do actually.
that's cool.
So yeah, so he offered to teach me and sort of like take me on as like an apprentice,
Great.
which was really awesome. So I started doing that February last year, which was really awesome. And it's quite nice because, especially I think as an artist, you spend a lot of your time sort of by yourself just in a studio.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's quite nice being able to have like a few days where you can go into like a tattoo shop and have a bit of a social aspect of it and things.
Right.
And, you know, like meet a few more different people and stuff. So that's quite nice.
Yeah.
And also, yeah, it's just, I really love doing it as well, because especially when you do like a tattoo for someone and then you see them get up and look at it when it's finished and you see their face light up in the mirror, it's such like an amazing feeling.
Yeah,
seeing people like really excited about it. And also I think as well there's a lot of people out there who might like artwork but they're just not into buying paintings or buying prints. You know, they love art, but it's just not something that they would necessarily buy for their home, but they might buy tattoos,
Yeah, tattoo
they get like a lot
collectors.
of tattoos. So I
Yep.
think it's just a cool way to offer artwork, in
Hmm.
a different
Yeah, definitely. Well, that's
way.
cool. I've told this story many times on the podcast, but I almost got into tattooing around. I started doing tattoo shows. I got invited to a tattoo show, I think in 2009, maybe. And then I realized I had a big fan base in the tattoo world that I had no idea was there.
Mm,
And all these big tattooers were like, "Oh, I'll teach you how to tattoo," and they're kind of pushing me to learn. And I tried it a couple times, and it was like I just didn't feel like I had the time to learn how to do it properly because it was really hard. Like it was
mm,
not a natural feeling to me. It was like it's going to take some time and effort, and
yeah,
you know what I mean. You understand? So I feel like
yeah.
my life wasn't really set up. Like I was at that point. I'm doing art full time, and I'm just hustling all the time.
Mm,
And I know in the long run the tattooing would have paid off, but I didn't feel like I had the I don't know year or two to really apprentice properly, and I was also was just like totally, I didn't start painting until I was 33, so I feel totally satisfied with painting. It's like I don't
yeah.
really feel like I need to do another thing because I
Mm,
switched careers at 33, or no, I made the decision to get out of effects, which I'd been doing for like 15 or 20 years to that point. And then decided to be a painter, and I'm just like, that's going to be another change. I don't have time for it. It's really cool, but it's really hard too. It's like I just didn't feel
no,
like
I
it,
totally get that.
you know?
It's like it definitely helps if you have like you go into and like you have like fans and your own art style and things, but
Yeah.
actually translating like you there's so much skill involved, and even just to the point where like say like when you're painting you will um you can sort of like be very expressive sometimes or like flick your wrist a lot, whereas like with tattoos you have to be very very mechanical
Yeah.
in terms of being very careful with the pressure and the depth
Right.
and things like this.
Yeah.
So it's almost like you have to be almost like robotic and very like precise
Hmm.
in a way.
Yeah.
Whereas with painting, it allows obviously like if you make a mistake, you can easily tidy it up and
Yeah.
things. And
Yeah.
you can't
Yeah.
do that with tattooing.
Yeah, and also, I know you kind of said the opposite because you're saying it's nice to have people, go interact with
Mm,
people because being an artist is so solitary. And for me, I'm like when I do my artwork, I don't want to have to talk to someone. That's one which it's different strokes for different folks. But
yeah.
that's the one of the things when I would do makeups in the film industry. When you're like applying a makeup on somebody, a prosthetic, and you have to
Mm,
like talk to them and
make the small
converse,
talk.
which part of the reason I started this podcast is because I was so bad at small talk, and I've really learned how to speak to people now after doing this for like 6 years. But prior to that, I was very uncomfortable with it. So that was always kind of like, I just want to glue this thing on your face and make it look cool, but not have to talk to you. Just
Mm.
because I was so awkward and just, I don't know, not good at it. So that was
Oh, no,
so,
yeah.
I enjoy that about painting is the solitary life. I've always been kind of like a solitary person. So
No, I totally get that. And I think as well, like a lot of us artists can be quite introverted in that way,
hmm.
and like appreciate our own time. But I'm definitely like that in a same way as well. But
Yeah.
I think with the it helps that I have like some like really lovely clients with the tattooing,
Yeah.
which makes
Yeah.
it easier.
That's
But
true.
I feel like as well you have like a bit of a script sometimes with like new clients or people that come in, and
Right.
it's sort of like um like where do you live locally, where do you work, and
Yeah. Yeah.
I'll always sort of like just ask people like a few of the same questions and see how chatty they are. But often Some clients as well will just quite happily sit there in silence, or will
Yeah, I
put their
imagine.
headphones in as well and just kind
Yeah,
of zip out. Or,
yeah.
people will bring a book or something and they kind of just appreciate like that time just for themselves to not
Oh,
talk. I'm like, okay, cool, that
yeah.
works for me. I genuinely, you're probably the same, that like when you work, you just go a bit into your own,
Yeah.
like your own zone.
Mm-hmm.
So, often like even in the shop, things will be happening around me and I'm just kind of block it out. I'm just so like concentrated on doing the tattooing that,
Right.
building could probably be on fire and I wouldn't even notice.
Yeah, I remember when I started doing the tattoo conventions, just I had a booth and I would show my artwork and sell prints and stuff.
Mm,
But I remember there were artists that would just like put headphones on and do their tattooing, and it was like they're blocking. You could just tell they're completely blocking everyone out. They're just focused on this little area.
yeah,
And I was like,
yeah.
I'd probably be one of those if I did that.
Honestly, yeah, totally valid. Yeah.
Yeah. So do you so you're not, like switching to tattooing. It's more like just another way of creating art for you.
Yeah, definitely. Like it's really nice doing the tattooing, and especially because I used to do a lot more sketchbook drawing years ago
Mm-hmm.
when I had a bit more time, and um, I'd sort of like sit and do these really detailed drawings in my sketchbook just for myself, and as I sort of like got busier, and I didn't really have the time to sit and just do that as much, and so I feel like now with the tattooing, it gives me a good excuse to go back to that,
Mm-hmm.
because I can sit in and draw it and then post them up as like designs and Flash. And
Right.
often you'll have like a little idea for something and it might not work as a painting. It might just be just one sort of little image, and you think, well, it it wouldn't work as like an oil painting, but it would look really cool as a tattoo design.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, it's just a different avenue, but I think the painting is always going to be my main thing because I just love it so much. Like
Yeah.
I can't imagine a world where I don't paint.
Yeah. Right. It's so fun. It's
Yeah.
so fun. Heartbreaking and difficult, but also so fun at the same time. That's what makes it so fun, is that it's so hard to do that when you are successfully can make a painting, it feels so much better because it is difficult to do. It takes a lot of training and stuff.
Mm.
Do you feel that way? It's
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
There's so
And I
many
think
things that can go wrong. It's just like there's a lot of things that make it difficult.
yeah, and it's always like a really nice feeling when it's completed, even
Mm-hmm.
though it's I'm sure you're the same. Like you could probably sit and like fiddle with paintings and carry on
Yeah,
working on them and changing things and stuff. But when it's like you finally come to that realization, like, no, I think it's done. It's a
yeah,
nice feeling being able to see it. And also I think when you can kind of see like your progression with painting as well,
yeah,
that's quite nice to see.
definitely. Yeah, yeah. I know that I don't know, the most exciting time for me as a painter was when I got to a point, because in the beginning you're not sure if you can pull it off. You have an idea, you have a design, and you're
Mm,
like, I don't know if I can pull this off. And sometimes you can, and sometimes you kind of don't all the way, or this is how it was for me. Like I didn't hit
mm,
the mark, and I remember getting to a point where it's like I can always hit the mark. Like I know I
mm.
can make this work. It might not be as easy as the others, but you can kind of nail it every time.
Yeah.
That feels like a really good feeling. Like I could paint whatever I want pretty much now,
Yeah.
after all this time and suffering.
No, it's amazing, and I think as well, like a big part of that is the longer you do it, you sort of like become more practiced at doing sort of like sketches and the prelim work and things,
Yeah.
don't you? And you kind of like really figure out a way that works for you in
Hmm.
terms of like mocking things up and stuff, so that you can actually produce like pieces that you're happy with each time.
Yeah. Once you nail down a process that works for you
Mm,
from beginning to end, it's a good feeling. And then you kind of like, at least at this point, for me, it's sort of like I've got a process that works, and you get to a point and you want to start switching things up just to make it like interesting, because so you don't want to get bored with your process. So you try new
Mm,
things, or you try and just like do it as efficiently as possible. And so I don't know. There's always so many different things to try and so many different techniques to try. It just seems like it's hard enough of a process that you can spend your whole life playing in that world, which
oh,
is,
definitely,
you
yeah.
know.
I know, yeah.
So what's your okay. Okay, before I was going to ask you technique and all this stuff, technical stuff, but
Mhm.
tell me before we get into that, tell me about why do you like dark art? I mean, what
I
is it?
think
How did you get attracted to that?
I I think it's kind of like when like there's those of us that kind of just lean a bit more towards the darker side anyway,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah.
and and sort of like being a bit more of a goth, especially when I started like getting into that when I was a teenager.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like the art just kind of goes hand in hand a bit in a
Yeah.
way, you know?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it seems
Yeah,
a lot of people who are into goth culture or metal culture
yeah,
also seem to be attracted to making dark art.
all the cool people, yeah.
So, but did it start? I don't know. Is that something you noticed at a young age, or was when you were a little kid, or once you were a
Mm,
teenager, or
I think it was definitely a teenager for me because when I was younger and I'd do paintings, it would mainly just be like flowers and landscape type stuff and
okay,
the sort of stuff you kind of try when you start getting into art and painting
right?
and then when I was a teenager and I started doing my own very sort of like emo-y goth type drawings and art and things. um, yeah, definitely that's when it started to come out and I feel like I went away from that a bit when I was at university
Hmm.
because the my tutors would always try and encourage me to experiment with different things and try lots of different subjects and I think like I don't know if it's the same with like art schools in the US, but in the UK you're very much encouraged to be experimental
Hmm.
and be very conceptual in a way.
Oh yeah.
And so I felt like if you went into it with a very defined style straight away, you were a bit of a disadvantage in terms of the way the teachers would see you being. Um, I don't know. I guess just maybe they thought it was a bit too more boring in a way. Like they wanted to see people like really try things that were different and push
Right.
boundaries and stuff. And
Well,
so
that's what art school should be for. I imagine is like figuring out who you are as an artist and trying a bunch of different styles and techniques and stuff.
yeah,
You
I
know.
think so. And it was good to a certain extent, I think. But I think the maybe it was just the courses that I was on, there was a bigger shift towards doing a lot more conceptual work. So especially stuff in terms of like installation work and more like video work and more like performative stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It just always seemed to be that the people that would do that type of work, the teachers got a lot more excited about it, and those people got the sort of the higher marks. Whereas, if you turn around and do like a drawing, it was
Right.
like, okay, it's cool, but why have you done a drawing? You know?
Right.
So
That's what irritates me about the conceptual art thing. I've said this on the podcast. I've had this podcast for so long that I'm always saying I said this on the podcast many times, but it's true. It's like I appreciate that weird abstract conceptual art, even performance art and people doing like weird things. I can totally get that and appreciate it, but what I don't like is that it's held up as a higher form of art than representational artwork, like the stuff that we do. It's like it's all
mm,
art, and I don't know. To me, when that's the accepted academic thing in art schools, what we're doing creating representational stuff, especially this kind of surreal representational work, that's we're the ones rebelling against that established mainstream thing, and that's what
Mm,
art is always like, trying to overthrow the last thing in art history.
yeah,
So I
yeah,
feel like we're
definitely.
doing the right thing. It may be
Yeah,
self-serving, but I feel that way.
yeah, I think it's anything that seems to be as well like a focus on anything that's very like decorative or could be seen as like
Right.
more like craft or something
Right.
is very much sort of like separated from that conceptual world by like
Yeah, but
by certain art people, you know.
but that's why it's cool, because they don't like it or they don't appreciate it. It's not important to them, and they're the
Mm,
kind of establishment. And so by
mm,
bringing craft back in, that's also kind of a rebellion against that. I don't know.
mm. And
I
so it's the same with the tattoos as well, because I have like a few friends who are tattoo artists that went to university and wanting to go into being a tattoo artist again, the teachers didn't really appreciate it.
mm-hmm.
Well, you know, I'll say like I shouldn't generalize, but like their experience was the teachers didn't really appreciate it because it was very much like, why do you want to just work in a style that's already been defined? You know, why do you
Right.
not want to do something that's like completely new and completely different? And yeah, so it just felt like certain times if you have like quite a defined idea of what you want to do, you're at a bit of a disadvantage
Mm-hmm.
sometimes.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know. It just seems like since like I don't know, Warhol and all these folks that were like, everything can be art.
Mm,
Anything is art. Where do you go from there? It's like you kind of can't go. It feels like you can't go beyond that idea. What's next after, once you get to a point where you can have no painting on a wall and say, here's my art piece, which is, I'm not even arguing against it. I get it in the context of
mm,
that style. But how do you go further? And to me, it seems like uh, going back to craft and doing stuff that's more, I don't know. It's like we're not doing something that's been done before, especially with dark art. You know what I mean? It's like, yeah, we're doing craft is important, and we're doing representational work, but there's never been a big dark art movement in art history that I'm aware of, other than maybe you could say some of the weird church paintings were kind of like that, but there's never been like a big movement of people taking this idea that you're turning something that normally people uh, don't like to look at and turning it into something beautiful, kind of transmutation of dark energy into positive energy, kind of, which is, I think, dark art is kind of doing.
mm.
Seems new to
Yeah,
me. Maybe I just don't
yeah,
know
no,
my art history, but
yeah, no, I totally get you, and I think that's the thing. Like, I definitely like a lot of conceptual artists and can really appreciate it, and I love going to galleries and seeing that type of work as well. Because I think just because of like my background and things like you know I do really appreciate it, but
mm-hmm.
there hasn't really been a kind of like more of a dark art movement, like you said. There's always just been like historically you can think of like just you know like a few certain just painters and things that kind of
Right.
had darker themes,
Mm-hmm.
but you wouldn't necessarily class as like
Right.
a dark artist as such.
Yeah. So I don't know. I think what we're doing is, again, this is kind of self-serving to say it, but I feel like we are doing, what we are doing is legitimate. It's like, it is the continuation of art history. I feel like, I don't feel like the thing is that the establishment that holds conceptual art and stuff in higher regard than art that involves craft, they kind of are giving the impression that we're going backwards, like we're going back to this other thing. And I think, no, we're going forwards, because we're taking traditional techniques and we're making new kind of art that wasn't made before. Like we're using whatever old masters techniques or glazing techniques and stuff, but we're making this weird shit that wasn't really done before. you know?
Yeah,
So I feel like I think that's new.
Yeah, and I think it's fun to sort of like look at that type of art sometimes and just reject it and just kind of think like, screw it, I'm just going to do my own thing and do
Yeah.
what I like and everything.
And that should be
And I
the,
think as well, like a big part of it is just that the kind of like obviously the art world can be a bit gatekeepy to a certain
yeah,
extent,
yeah,
right? So
right.
I think as well you see like some artworks and even some like artist statements and you read them and you think like how does that make sense,
Yeah,
you know, like the way it's written.
yeah,
And I
right.
think part of that is almost like a little bit of a gatekeepiness because it's like if you don't understand it and you don't want to try and figure it out, then you're kind of like not really allowed,
Right.
to be part of that world sort of thing.
Yeah, yep.
It's like trying to filter out the people who aren't as serious about art.
Right. Totally. Yeah, yeah. It seems to me like at this point in art history, everything has been done, and the thing to do is find your own voice as an artist, whatever that may be, whether it's conceptual art or, you know, woodworking stuff or traditional painting or sculpture. That's the thing. It's, I don't know, maybe it's less about movements now because the world is more connected because of
Mm,
the internet. It's less about a the big art movement and more about individual artists. You know, we've got the whole uh, history of art to draw upon. You know, it's like all been done pretty much, and so the new thing is taking bits and pieces of whatever you think you like, and then making your own personal new work. I don't know. I might just be.
yeah.
That's
No, I think it's about sort of like finding your own voice in a way, isn't it?
yeah,
And also I think recognizing that you don't have to be some, massive like gallery artist in huge museums to
right,
have made it or be like, considered like a successful artist.
right,
I mean, like, there's so many different avenues that people can go down and be successful. And people can go more down like a kind of like a craft route or do create something that's so random and niche, but has it just hits the right market and
right.
people can be so successful in that. And I kind of love to see it.
Yeah,
When
yeah,
you come across someone's work and it's just, they're just making like the most random things and
yeah.
selling them,
Totally.
and people get so excited about it.
Yeah, yeah.
And they're just kind of doing it themselves, like from their bedroom in a way.
Mm-hmm.
But it's kind of lovely to see.
Yeah, yeah. It's super cool. And if you think about in the context of art history, it's like I don't know that it didn't. There weren't like people that just did it for the hell of it back in the day. Like
Mm,
I don't know. Maybe there were, but it seemed like back in the day you had to go to school. You had to have at least enough money to go to school and really do
mm,
the formal art training and then try and make it. But I do love that people are making weird things in their bedroom and suddenly they're if they're cool enough they get seen on social media.
yeah, yeah, totally.
You know. So
Mm.
okay, so let's talk technical. Technical. How are you creating your paintings? Why are you doing the kind of paintings that you are doing? You know, the skull and flower thing is new to me. I just started doing that a few years. I don't know if you heard the story about how my wife gave me this flower and I stuck it in the eye of a skull and
Mm.
I thought, oh, that'd make a cool painting. Totally did it on a fluke, and then it ended up being super popular and so much fun to paint. I enjoyed it so much that I've been doing them more. And so
Yeah.
I definitely saw your work and was like, okay, we're related in that way, the skull and flower thing and the bright colors and stuff.
Yeah.
Or it's like I'm kind of in that world a little bit just because I'm trying this new thing out and I love it.
Mm.
So how did you discover this artistic voice of yours?
I think I guess sort of like you mean like the style, the type of like the style I'm doing?
Well, yeah, the style, but also the subject matter. I could see that it does seem very related to tattooing. The
Mm-hmm.
whole idea of skulls and eyeballs and
Mm.
flowers and you know.
I think it's so I started doing like a lot of my paintings are self-portraits.
Oh, okay.
And so I started to become obsessed with this idea of having the figure like myself become like quite covered with all this like flora and fauna.
Mm.
Mainly because I like that the work can be autobiographical, but then also can um, people can like see themselves in it. It's also a bit anonymous in a way.
Yeah.
And so I started doing a lot of paintings that had anatomy and flowers mixing together in it
Mm-hmm.
because I quite like this idea of, I guess, kind of playing with the concept of, true beauty being on the inside. So I was
Mm.
making the inside visible.
Right.
And I like to kind of mix up the anatomy in a way. So I'd have like bits of intestines in the head and things like that. And I love the idea that these portraits would, you know, at first look quite nice and quite colorful and lots of flowers, and you might look closer and then see there's some strange stuff going on with them.
Right. Let me interject here. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but one thing I want to mention too is that if you can look at guts objectively, they're objectively kind of beautiful in their own
Yeah.
way. It's weird. Organs, hearts, it's like we just recoil at them like you have this just because we're humans, and that's like, that's so weird that it's inside of me. But if you can get past that, sometimes you look at like just the colors of organs and blood and stuff when you could look at it
Mm,
in a different perspective, like people during, getting operated on. It's like even dead bodies and stuff. I've said this before too. It's like the colors of decay. They're really
mm,
beautiful and kind of like go together in a way that works artistically. It sounds
yeah, no,
weird, but
definitely.
like you get
Yeah.
weird. Like if you ever see, forensic photos of dead bodies, it's like you get this kind of amazing, sometimes this webbing, like
Mm,
veining, like a veining, and it looks really like airbrushy, and you'll get this kind of purple next to a yellow or yellowish green, and it's like if you can just kind of step outside of the, you know, seeing what it what it really is, it's like wow, the colors are amazing. It still works artistically. Even
yeah.
death is beautiful, like it's in a way. So I
Mm.
sorry to interrupt you. I just had to throw that in there.
No, I totally get that. There's so many amazing like colors and patterns and shapes and
Yeah,
things in the human body. And
yeah.
I even when I was in school, like my favorite subject was art, but I also really love biology. And
Mm.
if I didn't become an artist, I wanted to go and be a doctor instead.
Oh wow. Okay.
So,
That's cool.
but I decided to become an artist,
Yes.
and so I think like I still really love biology in a way, and um, yeah, so I kind of wanted to put different like body parts and mix them in with the flowers. And surprisingly, there's a lot of plants and flowers and things like that that are so unusual and so strange as well, and a lot that have almost similar shapes and colors to body parts.
Right.
Um, so I kind of I love the juxtaposition of those two things, and creating something that can be beautiful but also a little bit weird as well.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I really like that. So I think again the skulls kind of come from that. It's the sort of like the breaking down of the body
hmm
and having these flowers come out of it. And I love the idea as well of transformation and growth.
hmm
So I think that's kind of a big theme in my work as well. And so I like to create these figures because even though they're self portraits, they're still sort of like anonymous figures in a way.
hmm
Um, that are almost like just growing or I guess transforming into different beings, like, better
hmm
versions of themselves in a
Yeah.
way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's cool. I love it. So how about technically, how are you designing these paintings, and how are you painting them, and are you using a projector, or are you it's like there's I just love to talk about artist
Yeah.
processes, unless
Oh,
you
yeah,
keep it
yeah.
secret. I know some people don't like to talk about it. I'm all about it though. I love
Oh, no, no.
talking
Yeah,
this
I'm
stuff.
happy to talk about it. So I try and get as many reference photos myself as possible. So um, all the portraits or the figure ones will just be me myself posing at home,
hmm
um, shooting pictures with my crappy phone.
Yeah.
um, and then the same with like a lot of the flowers. Like I try to get as many myself as possible. Like it's not always the case that I can get the correct plants and things that I want, but I quite like as well when I go out, I'll always sort of be on the lookout for nice arrangements or nice flowers. And if I see them, I'll try and take a photo. So the same as well, if I ever buy bouquets of flowers or get given them, I like to try and photograph each one because then I feel like it's linked to a memory in a way. And then because some of my work is so autobiographical, I feel like has this sort of hidden meaning to it, you know? So I can look at it and then think, okay, that was from that bunch of flowers that I got around that time in my life. And it's almost like a nice sort of diary.
Yeah, right.
Way. So yeah, I'll bring I usually just look through my photos and see which ones jump out at me and will maybe get an idea or start painting from that. So I used to mainly just use Photoshop to bring all my images in and create like a digital collage. I use now as well Procreate quite a lot.
Okay.
On my iPad.
That's great.
Mainly because I can sit with my iPad on my sofa with like my blankets on me and put a movie on, and I can kind of like trick myself into almost thinking that I'm not working, I'm relaxing, but I'm actually working. And
that's my friend Josh he's got a new iPad and he's so excited, and he's like, I can sit on the couch, you know, and watch, put the TV on, and it's a convenience factor, I guess.
I think as well, like I like to keep myself busy, and I kind of I don't know if you're the same, like when you're quite busy, it's difficult sometimes to switch off.
Yeah.
So,
for sure.
So I kind of, I'll always find like a project or something to be doing.
Yeah.
So yeah, I can sort of like almost trick myself into thinking that I'm relaxing and watching a movie, but I'm actually working on something.
Right.
And then I think as well, it can make it just quite fun because you can sit and just mess around with images until you start to see something form that you really like.
And you're doing this kind of like collage technique, or are you hand painting also with the pen on the iPad, or are you just kind of arranging? Or
yeah, it's mainly it starts with like a collage. So I'll bring the images in and cut bits out and arrange things and change scales. Like in a lot of my paintings, the scales will be completely off because I kind of like things to look maybe slightly believable, but not necessarily real.
Yeah, and it doesn't matter either. Because I was running into this too. It was like when I started doing these flowers and skulls, I was like, oh, it's got, you know, I started thinking like, oh, it has to be the size that it is, but it's like, nobody cares. Nobody cares for one thing. The other thing is, if it's good, it's good. If it looks good, it's a great painting. It doesn't matter if everything's exactly right, or, you know, you have an extra petal or whatever. It's like whatever serves the painting.
Yeah, so I kind of like this a little bit like unrealistic to a certain extent.
And it could even be better in that way when it's not quite right too, you know?
Yeah. So yeah, what I'll do is I'll create a collage and fiddle with that for probably far too long. And then we'll draw bits on it as well. And also maybe just like create a new layer. And then also like what I like to do now as a lot is get like a special, like, you know, like a color and add like a kind of like colored light to certain directions and things. And so it's quite handy as well having the stuff doing the collage and having it in like the separate layers, because then you can sort of like really try and figure out the lighting beforehand. And just sort of like scribble that on and adjust it and things. So yeah, I do the mock-ups that way just because I think like every artist has been there where you get too excited and start a painting and halfway through you realize that like something is really like not working in it, and you feel for too long, and then you just
talked
end
about
up
that so many times.
We've all
that's
been
when
there.
that's when I started doing studies. There's a point where like, I'm not going to get myself in this position again where I have to deal with this problem that shouldn't have been there because I was rushing too fast to start.
Oh, totally.
You know?
Yeah. So yeah, I did that far too many times when I started, and I thought, no, I've got to be a lot more prepared and a lot more planned. And I think as well, just because I like to do things that are detailed and things with lots of different elements in them, it's really nice to be able to have that figured out beforehand. And then when I actually sit down to paint, I can be so much more efficient with it.
Oh, yeah.
Because
I enjoy working that way too. Photoshop. I love it.
Yeah, yeah. And it's
collaging
like
and
it'll always change like a little bit anyway, I
right.
think,
Mm.
as you do it.
Do you
But
use a liquify? You ever use the liquify tool ever? I love using the liquify tool where you can like just a stretch. In Photoshop, there's a liquify tool that you kind of like,
yeah,
you can kind of. I don't know. I love that. You can
yeah.
kind
No,
of,
I know what you mean, but like, no, I don't really use it a ton, but like I do love stuff like that, where you can just kind of like warp things a little bit.
yeah, and you get it like
Um,
you can have a because I've got three of the same skulls I'm always painting in my paintings that I'm using in these newer paintings, and you can kind of like change the character of the skulls a bit with the liquify tool. You can kind of give it a point a little
mm,
bit more. You change the direction of the eyes a little bit. I like doing like little
mm.
subtle things like that. I don't know.
And it can completely change the piece in a way, can't
Right?
it?
Yeah. Yeah. It's great. I'm
Yeah,
into it.
one thing I really like to do as well is just with Photoshop is literally it's super simple, but just like render the like lighting in there, and I'll put like more like a spotlight in the middle of the painting.
Yeah.
So a lot of the time I'll do like just a very central light with a slightly warmish glow to it, so it kind of darkens the outsides,
Mm-hmm.
and even that can completely change the painting in a way, and it almost like adds a filter to it, so it will bring all the colors together.
Right.
Because sometimes I like the colors to be very very bright and rainbowy, but sometimes I want them all to feel a little bit more cohesive.
Right. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah. And if you're
and also, I
pulling
really,
from different photos where the lighting's different, they're not necessarily
yeah.
going to be kind of that same cohesive color
And I
scheme.
think as well, like I really love a lot of the old like masters oil paintings and a lot of like the really old like still life
Mm-hmm.
oil paintings,
Yeah.
and they have this like a really amazing like dark lighting to them that just feels very
Yeah.
candlelit. So I always try to emulate that type of lighting as best as I can
Yeah. It's the
with the
best.
paintings.
Yeah. It's so good. So
Yeah.
cool.
So when I've done that, I always will print out and like kind of sellotape together a like life size just print out of the mock,
Mm-hmm.
so I can just get an idea for the scale and see like do I like it that size? Do I want to make it bigger or smaller
Mm-hmm.
or add different elements to it? It's so handy being able to like actually see it in front
Oh
of you.
yeah. Yeah. For
And
sure.
then I usually work mainly just on wood panels which are framed or like cradled wood boards.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll usually just use like a tracing paper or something just to transfer the image, like the
Okay.
outline onto it.
Mm-hmm.
So then I have my mock um, that's like full color that I'll usually have like on my computer or on my iPad or something, that I'll work from when I paint. But then I've just got like the kind of the brief outline, so I just kind of fill it in as I go.
Mm.
But then I don't have to worry about scaling things up and having drawing things a little bit wrong or the perspective being off or
Right.
anything like that. Yeah, so it definitely makes it mean that I can be like a lot more efficient with the painting.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. That's great. That's kind of like I do my when I do, it's like I've got those kind of two styles. It's like you could tell the ones in my show that were photo reference, and then the ones that were just like not photo reference.
Mm,
You probably could tell.
yeah.
And so it's like I kind of have two different ways of doing it, but I generally am in Photoshop for both techniques. Like one I'll
Mm,
if I'm painting it, I'll paint it in Photoshop, and then but for the skull flower paintings and stuff, I'll do that, mess with it in Photoshop, and use it as my roadmap, and but I use a projector for those ones just because I don't know, I'm lazy, so it's a little easier to use a projector.
but then it's just like if you can make your life a little bit easier with something like that,
I
then
know,
I think
I know. That's the thing.
why not?
That's
Yeah.
that's like I've painted out of my head. I've used my reference, and as reference, I've painted from life. I've done it all these different ways,
Mm.
so I know I can do it, but I'm not going to spend the extra time just to, I don't know,
Well, I
show up.
think as well, like the main kind of like the vision of like you as like an artist as well is more in creating the ideas and doing the mocks
Right,
and or painting itself, not really in the sort of like the prep work of like priming
right,
your
yeah, yeah.
canvases and
I'll,
like
yeah, I agree. Although I will say that's one thing that came out of this show, this recent
mhm,
show, was
Yeah.
that I finally found a source for this aluminum, die bond or Alumacomp, the aluminum composite panel. You know about that stuff where it's like
Mm,
two. It's called
I'm
Aluma
not super familiar, no.
because it's called like this is one. It's pretty thin. It's basically
Hmm.
like that. It's like hardboard or masonite or whatever,
Uh-huh.
but it's two pieces of aluminum with this plastic substrate in between,
Hmm.
and it's what they make street signs out of, and freeway signs and stuff. Or
Nice.
and so it's kind of light but super strong and it's smooth. Anyway, so I finally found, and it's cheap. Um,
Hmm.
all these, really, I started messing with it years ago when I started seeing all these really good painters were using it because it's supposed to be like kind of indestructible and won't expand at all. Like
Hmm.
with wood, you're supposed to really seal it so you don't get any expansion and cracking in time. It's like this stuff won't bend or move at all.
Okay.
And also, what else is cool about it? If you're in a rush and you use a dryer in your a drying medium in your paint, you can like put it right up against a heater and it will dry the paint, but it won't mess up the panel.
Okay, that sounds pretty handy.
Yeah, that's the main reason. That's like the main reason I started using it because I live, in LA, so it gets sunny. I could just put
Hmm.
stuff out in the sun and it dries so fast. But I can't tell you how many wooden panels I was painting on that like bent
Oh
or
God, yeah.
warped. It's such a nightmare. But anyway, so it takes a lot of heat. And
Hmm.
anyway, okay, so I got a place that sells 8 by 4 foot sheets for $100, which is I think kind of normal, the going rate. But so I had 2 sheets of that, and I was able to cut all my panel. And you cut it with a utility blade, like a box cutter type thing.
Uh-huh.
You can cut it. That's how you cut it. You score it, and then you kind of snap it, and then just sand the edges. So no saw, just very easy for a lazy person like me. So but I found that like there really was this kind of prepping all of these panels. There was really uh, uh, like a not I can't think of the word. Not ceremonial. What's the word? Come on, it's
The ritual
yeah,
to it.
ritualistic. Yes, it was like
Yeah.
it really was kind of felt meditative in the way that like a spiritual ritual would be, where it's easy to do. It's just it's painting and sanding and painting,
Uh-huh.
layer gesso and stuff like that. So I kind of got into it in a weird way, like
Yeah.
yeah, sort of. I normally try and avoid all that sort of thing just to get to the painting. But I did feel like you know it almost made me like more connected with them in some weird way. Like I was spending more time with the panels themselves,
Mm.
cutting them off this big piece, and like I don't know, putting my energy into these paintings. And
Mm.
if nothing else, it just felt like I get it. I get the idea of uh uh it kind of made me understand ritual more.
Yeah.
You know
No,
what
I
I
get that.
mean? Like ritual. I've always, cause I'm kind of into all this magic and stuff like that, and it really made me go, "Oh, okay. A ritual is." It kind of made me just understand really what a ritual is for.
Mm.
And it's
And
really,
even I imagine with the bits like you did on the frames as well,
yeah, yeah,
that was sort of
absolutely,
like a finishing bit and everything. Again,
yeah,
that's sort of like adding to it, isn't it?
yeah, yeah. And then it's like I don't know, it made me feel more connected with the artwork, kind of the more I did prepping and stuff like that. But
Mm.
yeah, like I said though, I'd rather just have it ready to paint and not have to deal with it. I did get my daughter-in-law to do some of the gessoing for me, so that was kind of cool.
Yeah. Oh, I've definitely recruited a few people in my day too.
Yeah, yeah, artists used to have assistants back in the day.
Oh, I wish I had an assistant.
I know. Yeah. Uh so oh, that's so funny. Gary's calling me. Hello? Hey, I'm interviewing Emma right now. I'll call you back when I'm done. All right, bye. That's so funny. I had to include that. I'll leave that in.
No, Gary's so lovely as well. It was so nice being able to meet him for the
Oh
show.
yeah.
I'm like meeting him in person as well.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
sort of like, I've done like I actually did a solo at the gallery 2 years ago.
Oh, okay.
Um, but this was my first time flying out and also visiting LA as well.
Oh, really?
So that was super nice. I was really excited to like come
Yeah.
see the first time, meet everyone.
Yeah, they're great. They're amazing. The
Mhm.
gallery's amazing. How did you like LA?
Oh, it was so good.
Yeah.
I had so much fun. Yeah, like I actually like enjoyed it so much. I ended up staying an extra week.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
That's nice. Were you staying
Yeah.
around the gallery? Was it close to the?
So I stayed in Hollywood, like I had a hotel there. And then I have a friend who lives in Burbank, and so I stayed at his place for the following week as well.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
we did like so much stuff while I was there as well. So it was nice. It was fun.
Did you go to Wacko by any chance? La Luz de
No,
Jesus, Wacko slash Wacko.
no, I didn't manage to get there, unfortunately.
Oh, you're gonna have
No,
to. Next time you come out, you have to go. That's like the coolest store in LA, I think.
no,
It's
no, no. I definitely that's one that's on the list. We did
yeah.
yeah, we did a lot of like the kind of the big museums. So we did the Getty,
Mm,
the LACMA, the Broad.
cool.
Um, went over. We saw like the Corey Helford Gallery as well.
Oh, cool.
Um,
They have a nice
popped in at like
space.
Super Chief as well.
Oh
So we did
yeah.
like a few
Mm.
different things, but yeah, there's still so much to do.
Yeah, yeah. You'll have to come out back out again.
Yeah, definitely.
It's a long flight though.
Yeah, it was. I think maybe coming out was 10 hours something, and the one back was 9 hours
Yeah,
20.
yeah,
So, but it's fine. I
yeah.
managed to get like maybe an hour's sleep on the way back, so that helped. It
that's
helps slightly.
that's. I'm glad you get to see some of the other galleries too, though.
Mhm.
Yeah, I love Copro. The gallery
Yeah.
itself is so cool, and
Mm.
just the art they show is, I think, the best art.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. No, it was amazing. Like all the shows I thought that were on like the night were amazing, and
Yeah,
yeah, like I always like stalk the social media to see like what's showing and things, and it always looks good. And I
yeah,
was thinking, I wish it was I lived closer so I could attend them all.
yeah, yeah. I take it for granted, but because I grew up here, but it's pretty amazing. Um,
Mm.
so now that you are done with this show, it's like what's going on? I imagine how long were you working to create that show?
I think maybe around 4 months ish.
Oh, okay, that's
Yeah.
pretty
So
fast.
yeah, I'd done like a lot of like prep work beforehand, and then kind of like figured out the pieces I wanted to do. Um, so when I sat down to paint, I could be like quite efficient with it. But also when I'm usually in like a full like, painting mode, I won't be tattooing as much.
Mm,
So I was just mainly focusing on the painting and doing like extra long days and just becoming a bit of a hermit to try
yeah.
and just get in that mode, get everything done and stuff on time. But yeah, I have a few group shows still this year, so I'm just working on a few pieces now.
Mm,
And then I want to try and maybe just draw up some new like tattoo designs as well. Just because, I mean, all year I've been saying I want to design some larger scale like tattoo pieces, like more sort of like full body pieces and like full torso pieces and
mm,
lots of like sleeves, where things are just like people just covered in eyes and florals and things. But
yeah.
again, just haven't had the time to really like dedicate to that. So I think, I'm gonna have I've got a few more paintings to do, then I'm gonna take like a month or so, maybe just doing some like new tattoo designs.
Mm.
I've got like a print release I want to do as well. So yeah, and then I've got my next solo, I think in next year is with Arch Enemy Arts, which I think is
Oh,
June.
cool. Yeah,
So yeah,
they're
so I've
great.
got so I'll take a bit of time and then I'll probably just start straight back into that as well.
So you're doing like a solo a year?
Yeah, I usually do maybe one a year, but this year I did two, which was like a perfect amount for someone who just does painting. But then
Yeah.
when I started tattooing as well, it was just gave me like a really big workload. So
Right.
I definitely have learned now to like space things out a little bit more so that I don't have to do quite so long days.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I normally try and do like one a year, or at least try to have them like quite far apart with the years as well,
Yeah.
so I have one at the beginning of the year, one at the end of the year.
Yeah, yeah, right. Yeah. I,
Mm.
I I used to do two shows a year for a long time. I was doing
Yeah.
that and it was like too crazy. Then I went to one show a year and it's just now I'm like I can't do a show a year. It's too much. I'm too old. I can't deal with it because I got, I'm always like I'm making my money like throughout the year from my online print sales
Mm,
and whatever I
mm,
make that I can sell on my website. And that's kind of like the constant focus. And whenever I have to stop and, ideally I want to be able to paint and not worry
mhm,
about any of that stuff the whole time I'm painting for a show. But, um, it's difficult when you've got this other, the thing that's bringing the money in. You have to kind of tend to this
mm.
thing, people fulfilling orders and stuff, and it's hard to focus, and
Yeah.
I end up putting it off, and then it's like less and less time and longer hours. So I'm trying to do maybe, I don't know. I don't even know when my next one will be. Maybe 2 years. I don't know. I don't think I could do another one this next year. It's just was like really kicked my ass.
But your
Um,
paintings, like you do a lot of like bigger paintings as well. Like yours are a lot bigger than mine. And I mean, your last solo show had like quite a lot of pieces in it, didn't it? Like, how many
yeah.
did you do?
It was 13 paintings and then 6 studies that were,
Yeah.
8 by 10 studies and an 11 by 14 study. Yeah,
Mm.
yeah, but I don't think I sold any of the big ones, so I'm probably not going to be doing any big paintings for a while.
I think as well, that's kind of like the curse of the artist. Like you love to do the big pieces
Yeah,
and
yeah,
do all these detailed pieces that like take ages. And then it's like, okay, but
yeah,
is it going to be to sell that?
yeah. That's the thing, It's
Yeah.
people are always wanting to see like a big painting, and it's like I would love to spend a year on a painting or 6 months on a
Mm,
giant ass painting, but I have to somehow make money for 6 months to a year while I'm doing it, and then it might not even sell. It's if it's a commission, maybe if you got commissioned to do
mm,
something like that, that would be
yeah.
amazing. That's like kind of my dream to get
Yeah.
commissioned to do like I don't know some giant $100,000 painting or something. That would be so cool. It's like
Oh,
just
totally. Yeah.
shut the
No.
business down for a year or just like only I do have some help with processing my orders and shipping my stuff.
Mm,
She comes and helps a little bit, so I can have like a small regular number of orders coming in. But if I have to, if I have a big bill or something, I have to like, oh, I got to release a new print or create something that some studies or whatever.
yeah. Yeah.
But that would be a dream, just maybe someday. Maybe someday. Can you imagine?
No, I feel you there. And as well, because I think with my paintings, I used to do a lot of the more complex, detailed ones on a smaller scale as well.
Mm-hmm.
But then because I price my pieces by size, I realized that the smaller pieces, like I was taking just too long on these pieces. So I
Mm.
had to be quite strict with myself and think, okay, if I want to do detailed pieces, I have to do a bigger scale,
Right.
and kind of like be very controlled with the imagery I was putting into them in terms of the size,
Mm-hmm.
because I couldn't spend like weeks and weeks and weeks on like a small painting and then
Right.
only sell it for like a certain amount,
Yeah. Yeah. It doesn't you end up making minimum wage or something.
Yeah.
Uh, what's the largest painting you've ever done?
um I think it was probably, I don't know. I mean, I think in terms of like the artwork that I do now, probably some of the ones in my last solo, like I generally do work on the smaller size. So they
Okay.
were I think like what 18 by 24.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
But you can probably see behind me, there's like a massive painting of like all toys and things on the wall. That
Right.
was my final project for my master's,
Okay.
which is like a much bigger one
Right.
and took me like 6 weeks to do. But that's in like a, complete different style when I was a student.
Right.
So
Right.
technically that one, I think, but if we're talking in terms of the work I do now, the ones from the last solo.
Right. Yeah, that's cool. I mean, it really makes sense. I mean, you
Mm,
just seems like you just naturally work that scale also, but it's
yeah.
kind of a good it's practical. It's like I don't normally do paintings that big in that were in my show. This was like kind of a new thing for me. I mean, I did a couple on the last show, but the one before was all 11 by 14s,
Mm,
and I try and keep things small and on the smaller side just because they're easier to sell, because they're
mm,
more affordable. People have wall space for them. That's the other thing. If you make a giant
yeah.
painting, you have to it's hard enough to find one person that's going to spend a bunch of money on a painting, but then you find one person that's going to spend that kind of money on a painting that also has a big blank wall that'll fit it, you know? So you're just
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
you know, you're ruining your odds of selling the piece when you have all these conditions on it.
Mm.
So,
No, I
and
definitely
they're
always like
easier to
try.
ship, and they're
Yeah,
easier to like,
I'd love to do the like a few smaller pieces in like each show if possible because I think again it's nice like to be able to just offer different like price points and
yeah,
different like things like you said that can actually fit in people's houses.
definitely.
Yeah.
And that's often how you get real collectors that want to buy your big pieces is you kind of can get them started with smaller pieces,
Yeah,
you know.
yeah. And I think as well, going back to the tattooing with that, whenever I will draw flash sheets as well, I'll always try and do a few smaller pieces that are a bit cheaper on it,
Mm-hmm.
um, and a bit more affordable. Because I remember someone saying to me when I first started tattooing that they often like people who are the biggest fans of your work, they might just pick up like one of the smaller pieces and maybe they don't have like a ton of money or
Yeah.
something,
Mm-hmm.
but they just really want to get something of your art and like they're the people that appreciate the most.
Right.
And they don't have a ton, but they'll spend like what they do have, that's that smaller amount just to get something.
Yeah.
So I think it's kind of like nice to offer, things like that just for people that just really love your work and want to support you.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. And there's like a whole thing about making your work very exclusive and trying to get like
Mm,
to raise your prices and trying to get like the richest people to buy it, which I get, which is, something everybody wants that money. You got to have it.
yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
you got to have it. So it's good. But I don't like the idea of excluding people that don't have a
Mm.
lot of money, you know?
No, I'm the same. Yeah, I just wish that like I think that art should be accessible to everyone.
Right.
Which is again why I like doing prints and things as well because it just
Yeah.
makes it so much easier for people to get and if they want to support you, they want to like they do like your art, then it just they can get something.
Yeah. Yeah. And they can show their support. It's a
Mm,
good thing. I believe in that too, like offering a wide range of options, payment prices. And
mm-hmm.
it's like prints are like it's a starter kit for people collecting. It's like they can go to prints. For me, then they go to small study when they're ready to
Mm,
make that next jump. And then from the
yeah.
study, they go into a full painting,
Mm.
and then usually once they get a full painting, they can't go back to studies, because once you see a big, nice painting in your house, it's hard to go back to a little thing, but a little.
I think as well like art collecting could be kind of addictive, can't
Oh
it?
yeah, yeah,
So
for
yeah.
sure. Yeah. So we're kind of like, uh, uh, art dealers. We're drug dealers, but art dealers trying to hook them on the little stuff, hook them on the
Yeah.
cheap stuff, and not really.
No, totally. If I was rich, I would just buy so much artwork. It would be insane.
I
Like
know, I
I'd
know,
spend so much money.
I know, I know, I know. I've been able to. I have a small collection, but just because I've been able to trade with other artists, because I can't really, I've bought a few things, smaller pieces, but I can't afford, I make the joke all the time, I can't afford to buy my own paintings. So I can't afford to buy other people's either, but I can trade. That's one of the cool little fringe benefits of being an artist. You can trade with other artists,
Yeah. No, definitely.
and end up with kind of a nice collection. Well, see, didn't this fly by?
It really did.
It's
yes.
like an hour and a half about it. So it went like I said it was going to, right? Or you just forgot about it. See, I have the magic. I have the magic ability somehow. I don't know.
You definitely do.
I fell into this thing, and I feel like I have to keep doing it now. But yeah, that was really cool. I wish we would have done this while the show is up, but because then it's like people could have went to go see your work. Now the show's down, but I just couldn't do it because I had to. When I got back, when I was done with the show, I was too tired that week, and then I had that Pussifer store opening in Arizona I had to go to, and then I got back from that, and I was like, I can't do it. I got back on a Sunday. It was just I couldn't do it, but.
Oh no, I get it. And then doing off the back as well of like doing your own solo show, and
yeah, it was just I had to just put the podcast on hold for a bit. But maybe next time, let me know next time you have a solo show, and then you can come back on if you want, and we could promote the show and I don't know, talk about any stuff we missed.
No, that'd be awesome. Thank you.
There's always great art stuff to talk about in the art world.
Oh yeah. I could sit online and just talk about art stuff.
Yeah. Well, thank you for coming on the podcast. Don't hang up. I always forget to tell people that before I start recording. Don't hang up when we say goodbye, and then I'll say goodbye after. But as I do, just give people your own special goodbye to the people listening. That's it.
Thanks so much for having me on. It's been super fun, and it was nice to meet you in person and also see your work as well. Thanks everyone for listening to the podcast.
Thank you, everybody. I'll talk to you next week. Bye-bye.